Number 11, Broken Age Act 2. I reviewed it. I have surprisingly little extra to say. I am predictable. Number 13, Command and Conquer 3, Tiberium Wars. Which accent am I doing? Now, of course I've played this. I'm a Command and Conquer fan. I have definitely played this. Up to a point. That point being where a third faction shows up, the missions got way too difficult, and I put it aside. And this was a long time ago as well. The PC I had at the time had trouble rendering the HD video for the cutscenes. At least I think so, because when I installed it recently, the cutscenes were at a very low frame rate for no discernible reason that I could think of. You went into the options INI file, changed something, and then they were at full frame rate again. Why? Now, as much as I describe myself as a Command & Conquer fan, I barely played Tiberian Sun, and I think I touched Generals once. So the jump from Tiberian Dawn to Tiberium Wars was pretty big for me. It's in 3D, there's 5 different build menus, I can place waypoints, I can queue up multiple units. Actually, the biggest thing was probably right-clicking instead of left-clicking on everything to do actions. I kind of already learned this with StarCraft though, so it wasn't a big jump. They even have the option to let you left-click instead of right-click, but by that time I'd retrained myself, so not a lot of point in changing. I'll be honest, I played this to see more game, but I kept playing it because I thought it was good. Whilst I didn't play very much of Generals, I can acknowledge that barricading troops in buildings came from there. I see that as a good feature, glad it's in there. Glad Generals put that in. Aside from that, it just feels very good to play. There's counters to every unit you place down, not in a boring rock, paper, scissors kind of way, which seems to be a prevailing thing of... do I even call those real-time strategy games? They just seem to be strategy-ish games. It's not the RTS we had in the old days. But with all that said, you can still kind of build a giant army and steamroll your opponent. There's only so many ways around that, aside from unit caps. Don't know why they didn't put that in, to be honest. Now, maybe this is the old Command & Conquer fan in me speaking, but looking back on those, these were very simplistic missions we played back in Tiberium Dawn. Capture this building, destroy this building, steamroll opponent's base, that kind of thing. Occasionally, you get one mission where you don't have a base, you have a limited number of units. Sometimes one unit, but when you have a commando, what else do you need, really? Unless you're against a vehicle. I'm starting to ramble. And when I think about it, CNC3 does not go very much further than that. Oh well, don't tell a lie, there is escort missions. Maybe there's something I've forgotten and it's not coming to me, but I wouldn't know what that is. I've forgotten, that's how it works. What I did like, and something I spent more time than I thought I would, was playing the risk type mode that I can't remember the name of that's in Kane's Wrath, where you have bases and armies on a map of the world. Two armies collide, you can either auto-resolve it, where a computer will just say, yeah, somebody won, or you can dive down into it and have a proper RTS battle. The asymmetry of this was nice, because the three factions have 3 separate ways of completing their goals, of conquering the world. One of them might have to control a certain amount of territory, some of them might have structures to build, that kind of thing. I think it's safe to say the Tiberium universe as we knew it was looking dead by the time CNC3 was even announced. So in that regard, I'm glad it came back. In the fact that Kane came back, I'm very thankful. I would say the less said about Command & Conquer 4 the better, but I've honestly not played enough of it to properly judge it. I know the general consensus, I'll make up my own mind. Maybe, if I can be bothered playing it. But I like to think they did the original developers proud. For example, the third faction that comes in, that was already planned out by Westwood by the time they went under, as far as I know. The main hiccup I remember from that is Frank Klepacki not being on board for the music, but I think that was like a contractual thing. They eventually got him in for a new Red Alert. Number 12, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Hi, I'm IkiFoo, I am a fan of Deus Ex, and I should have played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines years ago. Maybe the incredibly awkward title put me off, I don't know. It's funny to think about how we've set up our RPGs. Stats, classes, perks, eventually we got morality in there. Bloodlines is the only game I've played where I actually feel like I have to roleplay. The reason? Humanity and the Masquerade. The game has you play as a recently sired vampire. I imagine as an excuse to introduce everybody to the World of Darkness universe, but there you go. And the main 2 things you need to learn are the aforementioned Humanity and Masquerade. The Masquerade is a set of rules that keep vampires secret. Don't use your powers in public, don't let anybody see you feed, and it's the reason that you didn't know anything about vampires when your character woke up that morning. All vampires are prone to frenzying, giving in to the beast as it were, to the bloodlust. The lower your humanity level, the more prone you are to frenzying. How does your humanity level lower? by allowing innocent people to be killed or draining people completely dry and therefore killing them while you're feeding. And the one you'll probably encounter first is accidentally draining a human dry whilst feeding on them. Might not be your first victim, but it'll come. And these two things all have an impact on how you play the game. How you stop yourself being prone to frenzying by making sure your humanity can go up through humane acts, saving lives, doing good. But that's your mindset. You're a vampire removed from society. You can't just go up to someone and say, hey, I'm a vampire, and expect the best things to happen. Although I'm pretty sure you can actually do that in the game at some point. It's a nice option. Won't work out for you, but it's there. You can roleplay. Now, there could be 100 things that put you off this. Obviously, there's the title, which is horrendously clunky, as is, frankly, the game. This was the first source game that came out not produced by Valve, and there were some rumours they had unfinished versions of the code to work with. If you listen to some people, this tanked the company. But it was so clearly a labour of love. The elements of roleplay, the level of roleplay that you could indulge in with this game, it was way and above everything else that was out there at the time. The developers themselves even went as far as to produce patches after the company was closing down, or closed down is a bit iffy. If you're going to play this, get the fan patch. Actually, I think there's more than one fan patch. You'll need to do a little bit of research, I'm afraid. I don't know what the best recommendation is. I don't even remember what I did. Like I said, I don't really make notes at the time. I really should, but I don't. But to bring this back round in a circle, if you thought Deus Ex was a good role-playing experience, I think you'll get a lot out of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I'm so sick of saying that game name. Let's move on. Number 14, The Consuming Shadow. You might have heard of this one, if only because it's done by Yahtzee Croshaw. Yes, the zero punctuation guy. He has a history of doing this kind of thing. He also has a Cthulhu-esque mythos of unimaginable monsters and old gods, and a couple of games set within that universe. This is one of them. Now, either I'm doing it wrong, or this just sounds really boring to explain, but bear with me. The point of the game is to stop a god from invading our realm. There's 3 total gods in play. One is the invader, one is helping the invader, and there's a third one who's just kind of there. Probably doesn't like the other 2, but not doing too much. So you drive all across the British mainland looking for 2 things. 1, clues as to which god is which, and 2, parts of a banishing spell to get rid of the big nasty evil god. Well, the biggest, nastiest, evilest god. Not only under a time limit, but whilst keeping track of your health and sanity. Lovecraft influence, remember. So the first part of the game is you driving around in the car. You've got your supplies on one side you can use. You've got your sat-nav to set where you're going, and you drive there, and it fast forward through time. You don't have to do it in real time, for God's sake. That would be terrible. The comparison you'll keep hearing is to FTL faster than light. You drive all around until you find towns that have been taken by the shadow or need investigation, and then you'll drop into a series of procedurally generated dungeons to batter monsters and pick up stuff. Sometimes previously fine towns will fall to the shadow, giving you little missions to go and save them. So to recap, you travelled the length and breadth of the island, gathering clues, gathering the spell, until you find yourself at Stonehenge, pierce its depths, fight off the monsters, and after all that effort, all that determination, you can banish the wrong fucking god and doom all of existence. Okay, to get any enjoyment out of this, you kind of have to get past the fact that it looks a bit rubbish. I believe Yahtzee did all the art himself. He's not a professional artist. Fine. As long as we're clear on that. But there's a good wee experience if you can indeed get past that. What I really liked when you're gathering the clues together is you get this table where you have name of god, the colour associated with them, their traits, which is like god of disease, god of lust, etc. A whole bunch of stuff like that. And you get little clues like the orange god hates the blue god, or the blue god is associated with disease, that kind of thing. So you get these little clues that you piece together yourself on this table, and I think that's really interesting. It's like writing down your own passwords or keeping clues in a notebook or something. And from that you figure out which god is which one to banish, and all of that jazz. Now, sanity is the feature that's going to kill you the most often, certainly. You get hit by a monster, you lose sanity. Something bad happens to you, one of those random events on the road, you lose sanity. You leave a room while a monster's still alive, you lose sanity. It's pretty damn harsh to watch. I mean, if you lose all your health, you keel over dead. If you lose all your sanity, you shoot yourself. And sanity is also the hardest stat to regain once you've lost it. Health, you get medkits. Health, you find those on dead monsters. Now, you can use what's called illegal drugs to regain your sanity. Temporarily. The lower your sanity goes, the weirder stuff happens. You start seeing monsters that aren't there, you get weird effects, your controls might reverse. Harshest of all, In the menu, you've got things like, go back to town or go visit the hospital, that kind of thing. And they might start swapping between what they usually say and kill yourself. If you click on it while it says kill yourself, well, you don't kill yourself immediately. You get into a wee mini game where you start putting a gun to your head. If you click rapidly, it'll go away. If you beat that, you stop yourself from killing yourself, you can sometimes regain a little bit of sanity. Sometimes. I mean, it's such a ball ache that I can't help but feel Yassi put it in to prove some kind of point. Again, Cthulhu and Lovecraft inspired, but seriously, this is harsh. Or maybe it's more complicated than that. Something about the fact that these events happen that hurt you in such a way that could maybe make you lose what makes you human. You have to hold on to what's going on here in order to fight this thing that drives you mad by looking at its creations, or indeed itself. Or maybe you looked at FTL and went, easy mode. Number 15, the Shiva. Okay, I did review this one, but there's a couple more points I want to make. Not as if I didn't have time or anything, the video was only 6 minutes long. One, the voice acting sounds worse, noticeably worse, than all other Wadget Eye games. Not in terms of performance, but in terms of the quality. More compressed or not recorded with as good techniques as usually. I'm not sure. In fact, one character's dialogue consistently clips every time he talks. Two, I emphasised how short the game as a criticism of the game. I should maybe have made that a criticism of the developer, because it doesn't really express on their website or their Steam page, anything like that, just how short this is. I mean, I'm dangerously close to evangelising for that company as it is. Hopefully this will be a nice counterpart. Because I wasn't joking, this is a couple of hours, an evening, maybe two if you fanny about for a wee bit. And I feel there's an expectation of certain genres. I mean, Call of Duty Modern Warfare was a bit rocking the boat kind of thing when it said it was a 6-hour campaign. At least we got to know that before it came out. So for something like a first-person shooter, you'd expect, well, beforehand you would have expected 10 to 20. Now it's probably around 10. RPGs, way longer. Point-and-click adventures, I'd put it somewhere in the 10 to 15, something like that. 10 at least. Walking simulators, not so much. Blatant YouTube bait like Goat Simulator, well, it depends how base your sense of humour is. Now, I suppose brevity is not something you necessarily want to advertise, but there's a point between don't want to emphasise your bad points and kind of lying by exclusion. I mean, I think they mentioned the competition in the blurb for the game, but even that's just an implication that it's going to be short, at best. Let people know what they're getting into. I didn't really have a problem with it myself. I figure that other people might when they spend some money, not a lot, but some money on something that's a couple of hours. It should be a lot clearer that that's what you're getting into. And one more point. Is it the Shiva? Shiva? The Shiva? It was never quite clear. I'm pretty sure the game uses both, so that doesn't help. Number 16, The Wolf Among Us. I decided to play this one with my dearly befuddled of the time, mostly because I'd lost our Walking Dead Season 2 save and neither of us could be bothered playing back up to where we were. Also, we didn't remember where we were. This was trickier as a co-op experience, and not only because we were less familiar with the universe and world this takes place in, although Fairy Tales in the Ghetto is not the worst way you could put it, and the time you have to make a decision seemed way shorter than Walking Dead. The original plan was we would debate quickly, because, it's not infinite, as to what we would do. No time for that whatsoever. I had essentially had to pick something. Now, I know before we said that we were unfamiliar with the world this takes place in, therefore I can't tell you how faithful an adaptation this is, but there's still characters you're familiar with. They're from fairy tales, they're from these stories. You get an idea of who they're going to be. But you've also got the twist on the classic fairy tale character, which actually works in its favour. You hear about a character that you're going to meet and you think, alright, I wonder what they're going to do with this one. You're at least vaguely familiar with the characters you've seen, so you're not completely lost. Although frankly, nothing was going to top Toad from Toad Hall wearing trousers and swearing his head off. Aside from that, it's a Telltale game. You walk around, you look at objects, you have timed conversations, then you have to make a very split-second decision. And QTEs, of course QTEs. And there seemed to be more consequences to the actions I was taking, compared to, of course, Walking Dead. The decisions I made didn't seem to have as much of an impact as I hoped they would, as I thought they might, considering some of the things that happened. Wolf Among Us, you're making decisions that will affect the entire game. You don't split off into different branches or anything, because that's probably a lot of work that no studio is willing to do. But some of them, you will see the impact in every second scene at least. It's not different to the point I'd want to immediately replay it. Indeed, this was a while ago and I haven't. But I'm confident I would see some changes. And I'll probably replay it before the next one comes out, which I'd say I'm looking forward to. I like the writing, I like the story, I like the characters, I like the way the decisions had consequences. Yeah, nice one. Number 17, A New Beginning. Reviewed it, was disappointed, immediately uninstalled it, never playing it again, moving on. Number 18, Skyrim. I wasn't that into Oblivion or Morrowind. I would do my usual play it for a couple of hours routine, put it down, walk away. Fallout 3 was the first sign that Bethesda could make a game that I would actually enjoy. Although I went back to it the other month, way clunkier than I remember. Actually, if I put the sprint mod on, I'd probably be fine. By comparison, what I really liked about Skyrim is I got engaged with it. I actually got some wanderlust. And I think what made that happen was the fact that things actually happen. Even in Fallout 3 I wasn't doing that. I pretty much stuck to the path unless there was something within a minute's walk that looked kind of interesting. I normally don't have that wanderlust that I think is pretty much essential for this type of game, or especially for MMOs. I'm not content to walk somewhere just to see what it looks like. I don't think I'd be rewarded pretty well for it either. Just like, well, this is thematically consistent. Okay, where's the next waypoint? But wandering around in Skyrim, stuff happens. Okay, this was helped by the DLC, I think. One time I was walking along, minding my own biz, I come across a wee hut. Okay, have a look inside. There's a trapdoor going underneath it. Alright, I'm game. Down it goes. There's a drug den. I get a free sample. Well, this could only lead to more interesting things. Take the sample, fall unconscious, and suddenly I'm a prisoner of vampires. Naturally, I bust out, kill every vampire in there, kill everybody in the drug den for good measure, and escape. So I was expecting a wee walk, and I got half an hour of fighting vamps. Probably got a level for my trouble as well. So wandering isn't for me, but wandering with the potential for cool stuff to happen as a result of wandering, that I'm on board with. It is, however, worth mentioning that it crashed more often the further I got in. I think that's a save game bug. For some reason I thought that was limited to consoles, but no, something's happening here too. Elder Scrolls game, hardly unexpected. Possibly something we shouldn't be putting up with, but another rant, another day. Maybe. One weird point was I wasn't sure if the game had finished or not. The storyline ended and there wasn't any "you have completed game, wow, great player" type thing to explain that to me. Come to think of it, I had a hard time the whole game figuring out which were story quests and which were side quests. But after playing Rage and Fallout 3, I'm very glad to see a game that doesn't make me buy DLC so I can play past the ending. No word on whether that's the case in Fallout 4, but I have no way of getting that information without spoiling myself. Number 19, Middle-earth Shadows of Mordor. Prior to playing this, all I knew about it was the Nemesis system. Talked about here and there, up and down, left and right, all the directions you could possibly care about. You spend most of your time killing Uruks who are part of Sauron's army. If one of them kills you, they kind of become your nemesis, but they'll also get a promotion within Sauron's army. They killed a ranger after all. You're a ranger, by the way, I should have mentioned that. The Uruks who have been promoted tend to have a little introduction, like they spot you and they go "Brrr," and it'll have their name underneath it, and you kill them, hopefully. Although it's a touch annoying when that introduction thing happens, when you've already got somebody you're fighting, and then it happens again and again and again and again, and you eventually get killed. But there's more to it than that. If you attack this person and killed you again, they'll remember you. If you did some damage to them, like threw them through a fire, they might have some horrific scarring on their face. That's one example I heard anyway. Didn't happen to me. They'll also get promotions from fighting amongst themselves, that sort of thing. Plus there's missions where you can interfere with, say, an execution or an ambush from one leader to another. It seems to be my year for playing open world games, although Shadow of Mordor's 2 maps probably don't equal the entirety of Far Cry 2. Mind you, I know which one I'd rather play again. It's Shadows of Mordor. It's better. The combat is as Arkham as you can expect. You left click a guy to hit him, you right click to stop another guy from hitting you. I'm not going to rib on games that copy that system though. If you're going to copy something good, and I've never seen a game do it badly. There's some stealth in the game too, given that you're in a very much enemy territory type situation, but they do it a little bit different. If you're charging at an orc, for example, he hasn't spotted you, there's a little period where he doesn't immediately set the alarm off or get into fighting mode, so you can sprint up to a guy, take them out with a stealth kill, nobody's any the wiser, even though he's turned around and gone, because he's not turned around and gone, that's the one you want to worry about, that one. And I'm a big fan of that. Just because your opponent has spotted you doesn't mean it's going to have any effect, because if you kill them quick enough, nobody knows. It speeds up the gameplay, and importantly, it makes you feel bad of arse. Or bad, I'll stick with badass, that wasn't a good ad-lib. Now, you know how in the last video I was judging open world games by how much of the side stuff I was willing to do? For about 3-4 hours of playing Shadow of Mordor, I was killing Uruks. Nothing else. I did the bare minimum of story quests to get to that point, and I just killed folk. It was great. It wasn't even really side missions, just stabbing orc looking things. And getting battered when the 4th or 5th Uruk walked into a fight that I was having. I should have stopped going back there. As it turns out, I'm not missing a hell of a lot. It's only about 20 story missions in total. But they've packed a story in there. There's backstory to the characters, there's intertwining things, you get to find spoilers, plot twists. There's quite a lot in there, which is pretty good because it's all kill or no filler. It doesn't outlive its welcome in any way. In fact, there's a couple of things happening in the story that change gameplay fundamentally, something I think is a brave move and a good one. And it all leads up to this epic fight at the end, followed by a final boss that's a QTE. Yeah, the rumours were true, that happened. Still, it lets you play on after that, so could be worse. Not to mention, I just so happened to get a version of the DLC where you play as a character who possesses the One Ring. That's fun. So there you go. I think this is worth playing. I've done my best to describe the gameplay and make it sound exciting because I think this is good. Also, you can play it in a resolution of 384 by 216. That's just funny. Number 20, XCOM Enemy Within. As some tweets, forum posts, comments, and a 17-part Let's Play on my channel might have given away, I'm a bit of a fan of XCOM. However, I've done a video in which I talk about me playing that game at length. I'd never got into XCOM Enemy Within, the expansion pack of sorts. Mostly because I could barely run the damn thing. Open it up, ran like arse. Changed all the settings to be the lowest possible, ran like arse. Tweaked the INI files, ran like arse. As it turned out, it was the old laptop has two graphics processors problem. It was trying to run on Intel HD. It's fucking embarrassing actually, because that's usually the first thing I check. Maybe I didn't realise the two use separate executables. I don't know. Because that's how the NVIDIA control panel does it. It's on a per executable basis, so the changes I'd made for the original XCOM didn't apply to Enemy Within. It was something new, and it defaulted to integrated graphics. So now it runs at a playable level. What's new? Well, I think its main strength is it adds to the campaign rather than replaces it. First there's the gene mods, which you basically have another level of upgrades for your soldiers. Had a fairly minimal impact for me, maybe because I didn't utilise it until pretty much towards the end of the game, and from there psychic powers kind of take over everything. And there's the mech suits, which, well, I say mech suits, you kind of have to permanently augment your soldiers to use them, meaning that they're useless in any other situation. But that's the price you pay for turning them into big hulking metal bastards. So hulking metal and bastard are they? There's an ability you can unlock to use them as cover for other soldiers. Slap a BFG on one of them mofos and you can pretty much charge it headlong into battle and trigger mobs all over the place. All of the above is done by collecting meld, which is found in little containers scattered randomly across the mission maps you encounter. What's a pain in the arse about it is you only have a certain number of turns to recover these things, otherwise they self-destruct. And the one thing you don't want to do at higher difficulty levels is charge headlong and trigger mobs all over the fuck. And there's a lot less of it compared to other resources, possibly why I held off from using it until pretty much towards the end of the game. There's also this new faction called Exalt, which is a kind of scrappy competitor to XCOM, with BFGs and eventually gene mods who kind of kill everybody, including you. That's a real big part I have a problem with. Plus they have more health than the basic grunts you start off facing. You do these covert ops to find out their base of operations, where you send off a soldier for a couple of days and then have a mission to extract them from their infiltration. Once you've gathered enough clues, you pick the country you think they're situated in, strike out their base and take them out once and for all. Or you pick the wrong country, which immediately exits itself from the XCOM project. So yeah, do your research first. As it turns out, their base is on top of a skyscraper. I think there's even a character in the game that says the line, hiding in plain sight. It's not exactly a base assault mission, in fact it's not really that long. But it's still satisfying to take these fuckers that have been a thorn in your side out of the equation, out of life. So yeah, there's a couple of different mission types. The infiltration ones where you're retrieving a covert ops operative. There's another good one set in a fishing town, which is based around zombies at first, and then of course chrysalids. Still good though, very tense, quite long in fact. And then there's the base defense mission. Oh man. It seemingly pops up at random and happens only once per XCOM game. In the original XCOM, this could happen at any time. You had base defenses you could build specifically to prevent this. I guess we were so desperate to have those missions back that this is what we were willing to accept. Including me, I accept this. But oh man, I was so excited when this came up. Now, the original base defense would have all the soldiers in that base scattered around. It would be based on the layout where you placed buildings down, and you would fight off the aliens from there. Here, a little bit different, and not only because you could have a squad bigger than 6 people. So you start off in one area, I think it's a command centre, with a couple of your regular soldiers and some base security staff. New rookies that have been made for that mission, basically. After a couple of waves of aliens, you get reinforcements. A couple more of your soldiers come in. This happens another couple of times, and then you start pushing the aliens out of the rest of the base. Long fight, not an easy one, and this was on normal difficulty. I wanted to see the new stuff, don't judge me. In fact, the next difficulty level up is Classic, and Pro Jared just lost to that, so off my back. Overall, this expansion makes the game better, I feel. I would have maybe liked more options, like turn off the Exalt missions if you can't be bothered with them, if you're not ready for them. I mean, you've already got options to turn off Operation Slingshot. Why not add that in? I said I didn't get much out of the gene mods, or really the mech soldiers. Mech soldiers got more useful as we got to the final missions. I would have to replay it and use those a bit earlier, see how much difference they make. And that's it, at long bloody last. This was in severe danger of being Games 2012 all over again.